We are here today with Jenn Cormier. I am so excited for this conversation. I know you guys are too. I've gotten some replies from you and some PMs from you about this one. It's just, I think this is a topic that's speaking to a lot of us right now. So I want to just tell you a little bit about Jenn before I bring her on. She specializes in helping people of all spiritual backgrounds and belief systems to transform the grief in their lives into joy. And with over 20 years of experience in the healing arts, she gently guides her clients to heal and find purpose and clarity in their lives. Her work is just so beautiful. She is the founder of Heal, a year-long immersion program for women, and the creator of the Walk Through Grief with Grace podcast. And if you are a podcast listener like I am, I highly recommend downloading that podcast. It just really is beautiful. The conversations that she has, the topics that she covers, just really help to center and kind of help you embody yourself a little bit better. So she has really helped thousands of people overcome the physical and emotional pain that comes with grief, right? We know that our body feels it, not just our emotions feel it. So her approach as a somatic healing arts practitioner is to help you to be kinder to yourself so you can feel good again and show up fully for your family and your community. By honoring the sacred in your life, you can live out your unique legacy. So welcome, Jenn. I am so thrilled to have you here with us today.
Kia, thank you so much for hosting me in this really important conversation with all of your community. I just love being a part of your world. So thank you.
Well, and I love that, I'm going through your introduction, just sort of what you do. And I hope ladies who are listening here, you can really hear the kind of how it's so related to all the things that we talk about in this group, right? It's related to the things that I talk about, really being kind to yourself and really paying attention to kind of the emotional body that you are living in, as well as your physical body and, how connected those things are. One of the things that I love is people often refer to Jenn as a ceremonial artist because she brings beauty into dark places. I think that's so powerful, and it paints such a beautiful picture and a really accurate picture of kind of what Jenn does in her work. So I know you have been on your own journey of grief and has discovered through that process just how you can kind of turn that into creating more of a purpose in your life and really, really embodying that purpose. And I would love for you to just talk to us briefly about your experience with that.
Yeah, thanks, Kia. What I found when I went through my biggest grief journey, which was after my dad died in 2012, he was in his late 50s and went through a whole healing journey with cancer. He reframed that from battling cancer to going on a healing journey with cancer. And then I had never had a loss like that before. That it really floored me. And I went on a very purposeful year-long journey with grief at that time. And in retrospect, now 10 years later, now I'm doing this grief work it's pretty much all I'm doing. I see, oh, wow, that really opened the door for me to that experience of, there was a painful loss of my parent, but that experience of grief that really was a healing journey for me showed me, it just recalibrated my compass, really, my internal compass of what's the reason why I'm alive? What do I need to be doing? And really opened the door for me to be much more purposeful and clear and honest with myself, really, is what it was. It was like, well, my dad's gone now. Now, what am I going to do with my life? And I think we have often that existential moment, of like, oh my gosh, why am I here? What's my purpose? So I think grief work really becomes, as we move through it and as we heal through it, it ends up becoming purpose work. And we end up having all of this, compost from all the crap of the pain of our loss. It really becomes compost. Then we can grow stuff in our lives, and we can have this clarity for like, well, what's my purpose and what am I doing here? And for me, that ended up being living some dreams that I had put off for years. Like, well, one day I'll drive across the country. Someday I really want to have a kid, and I was in my mid 30s, and it was like, I had all these friends that were 40 and 41 and trying to have babies, and they were not able to, years of a process. And I got really honest with myself and said, I really, really want to be a mother. So I'm going to put that foremost. And I've always wanted to drive across country. So I'm going to set a date on the calendar and I'm going to do it. So it just really opened my life up, and really deepened my clarity around my purpose.
Yeah, I think that's so beautiful. And, one of the things that you said that I really heard that I want to reiterate, and then you followed through with that story, is that it was a purposeful walk with your grief, right? Like you were purposeful in your grief. And I think that's so key to kind of hear and to really feel into. It's like, because grief is one of those things where we can feel like we're just being tossed around, right? And we have no say, and it just takes us by surprise, and all this kind of stuff. And to turn that around and find a purposeful kind of journey, through that, I think is so, so powerful. So I know, when you talk about grief, are you talking about death, or is this a broader sort of category?
Yeah. So when I talk about grief, I talk about grief not as an emotion, but really as an experience, a process. Grief as a process, like a transatlantic journey, And there's going to be lots of things. There's going to be gorgeous sunsets and sunrises. There's going to be hurricanes. There's going to be all the things when you cross oceans on a ship, right? So grief, I think of as the ship crossing oceans. It's not, oh, there was a storm or whatever. So I think when we look at the definition of grief, sometimes it's just translated as grief equals intense sadness. And I think some people think of that like, oh, when I hear grief, I think someone died and I'm really sad, and that's what grief is. And then it's over. It's like sort of the simplified version of what our culture, mainstream media, whatever, that's what we're fed. And I think it leaves people really feeling adrift, because what happens, and I just got this image, Kia, when you were talking. So I've never thought of it this way before, but I love when this happens, when we step in these conversations. I'm like, I had an aha moment right now. I'm going to share it with your people. So here's my aha moment is we go through grief. Grief is a process. It's like a transatlantic journey. There's all the emotions that happen because it's long-term. So every emotion happens in the grief process, including despair, intense sadness, pain, disappointment, gratitude, joy can be in there. A lot of things can be in there. Everything can be in there. Everything. And what I think, how I just saw this is what happens is there's the quote, we can't experience great grief without great love, right? So what happens if you think about the grief that comes with a death, say I'm with my partner, my life partner, and they die. I was used to channeling so much of my life energy straightforward into this particular person, into this particular body. So this was my pattern of channeling my love, and my energy was like 80% per day is to this particular person. Their physical form is no longer there. So we are just like cut adrift. Like where is my energy going? Because they're not there. So that's why it feels so disorienting when a person who, like a father, a partner, a child, a best friend, right, is no longer there. So we have to reorganize where that energy goes,
Mm.
where that love goes. So it's more like, okay, the process is understanding, okay, there's still love that can go toward that person, but they no longer have a physical body. I can honor them in these different ways. And that feels healing because, oh, now I'm not blocking that love. And the pain comes from, I'm blocking that channel now. So that channel that's my life force and my love, now I'm like, oh, they're not here. I can't go that way. But in the healing process, we can see, oh, okay, I can give a little here. And then this opens up there. And where am I putting that life force and that love? So that's just an image that I had of sort of water, right? And how it channels.
Totally.
And then the short answer to that is it's not just death. Grief can be, also we can grieve, the dream of what we thought we would have with this life. I had a business and I had a plan and then it failed or I went bankrupt or whatever. And it's not only am I grieving, oh, I lost my office and I lost my this, but then I also lost that dream that I imagined. Same thing with the death. It's not just the death of my dad. It was the dream of, oh, I'm going to get married one day and he'll be there and then I'll have kids and then he'll be a grandpa. That dream is gone. So it's that layer. But we can also grieve, houses that are lost. We can grieve, a way of life. We can grieve, we had to move and we didn't want to. I mean, there's all different losses that evoke a grief experience.
Yeah. I love that imagery that you painted. And I think that's one thing that's really speaks to all the different kinds of grief is, you had at one point this energy flowing into whether it's another human being or an animal or a business that you had or a home that you lived in or, whatever it is. And then all of a sudden that energy has no place to go, right? That imagery was really beautiful. And it's like, oh my gosh, totally. That's exactly how you feel, right? Is you just feel like, where is this going now? That was really awesome. So I'm actually curious. I would love our ladies who are watching to know, how did you actually become a grief guide?
Yeah. So that's a title that I just gave to myself. There is no grief guide certification out there. I do have a background in the healing arts. I have 20 years of helping people out of pain. My background is in somatic healing. So, several different lineages of yoga therapeutics, Pilates therapeutics. I'm a massage therapist, Western traditional massage, traditional Thai massage, Eastern massage, traditional North American body work. So I've done a lot of work with bodies in the last 20 years of helping people out of pain, and often women, and often pain that's unexplained. There are all these there are all of these categories of symptoms that we don't really know what is fibromyalgia and why. We don't know, right? It's pain, and doctors are like, they just kind of shrug their shoulders. And a lot of people go, I feel so unseen and so not understood by the medical field because I am experiencing this not wellness, this pain, this suffering and whatever. And it's being experienced in my body. And what do I do? I wrote a paper on low back pain, and the research at the time was 80% of Americans experience low back pain at some point in their life, and much of that is unexplainable. Like if you look at an MRI, they're like, oh, we don't know. So my understanding now is, that pain, the physical body and the emotional body and the spiritual body, right? We're all these layers. And when we don't show up for our grief process, we don't move through all of those emotions on that transatlantic journey. Yeah. If we're trying to smash them down, they get stuck in our tissues. And then over time, we can really experience a lot of health problems. And the research is, you're 6 times greater risk of a heart attack after a major loss in your life. So it's it's extremely important to take that love that was going this way when we have a major loss and really circulate it back toward ourselves and use it as an opportunity for self-healing, for giving ourselves energy and love. Because if often that doesn't happen and people just try and push through it, they want to, they want to push it down, they want to keep going, they're fine, everything's fine, they're moving on. And there's no really way to bypass all of these emotions. We really have to show up for them, or else our body can really suffer. Our physical body and our health can really suffer.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's so true that, right, the physical ramifications of not allowing that energy to flow through your body and to acknowledge it and to work through it and to kind of feel into it, those ramifications are very real. Like you said, so interesting. It totally makes me think, it's a form of stress in your body when you have those energetic blocks, those emotional blocks. And, my spouse has low back issues and he has kind of a slight scoliosis in his back. And so it, will tighten up in certain ways at certain times. But what's interesting is the only time it bothers him is when he's under great amounts of stress. Like, if he is taking care of himself and he's dealing with the stress and the emotions of, whatever's happening around him, then his back is fine.
Isn't it wild?
It's so wild. It's so wild. We're like, all right, hun, you're under stress. We need to do something about this, right? You need some body work. We need to talk through something, like what's going on, whatever it is. And it's like, yeah, we got to get through this. And
yeah. One second, Keisha, Kia, I just realized I left my stove on.
This is what happens when you have a life that requires you to do multiple things at once. I will just put out there too that, Jenn's day is a little different than she thought it was going to be because her son is homesick from school. So this is just how we flow. This is how we roll in this world.
I was like, why am I smelling something burning? Why am I smelling something burning? Oh, I should probably turn the stove off so I don't burn my house down while I'm talking to your community. Right. Thank you.
I mean, I love these moments too, because you're like, no, this is actually real life. And I think what's so important for everybody to hear is you roll with real life in these little moments and you flow through them instead of being like, like panic attack.
Oh, no, yeah. I can't stop the interview.
Right. Totally. No, it's really no big deal. You can totally go turn your stove off. Right. Totally fine. Yeah. So, I don't know, is it possible when you are going through this process of grief, right? This journey to be grieving a loss and to feel kind of joy and contentment and satisfaction in your life at the same time?
Yeah. So, yes. And I'll just speak to a couple layers of that. The first layer is at the beginning of a major loss, often it feels really heavy, really dark, really foggy. I've had clients tell me, I don't think the fog will ever lift in my life. It's just going to be foggy forever or heavy forever, or I can't imagine, lightness again. So I'll tell people that's a season, that's a season that will pass, especially if you meet it. It'll pass quicker if you're with it. If you're like, you know what, it's really heavy and I'm just going to lay it down and just let myself be all the way heavy and not try and go run and do 3 jobs instead. Yeah. So that's the first layer of that. The second layer is some people, I've had clients that are, that their family's Catholic, for example. And the image of grief is, I wear all black. I have to be sad and sullen. I cannot wear makeup. There is no singing and dancing and joy. My father died and I must be sad with my, you know what I mean? And there's this guilt, like, well, if there's pleasure, aren't I not honoring that person? Shouldn't I, my husband just died or my parent just died. Shouldn't I be sad for like really need to put on this face, right, for the world. So there's some of that. And what I want to just say to everybody is every loss is different. Every grief journey is different. It's kind of like a labyrinth. It's going to turn you all these different ways. And when you thought you were going this way, now you're going this way. And just to know that whatever you're experiencing is okay. And everything can be in that basket, including joy and gratitude and pleasure and ecstasy and all of that. And I remember this moment, now that you bring this up, when I was, I had a grief practice for a year after my dad died. And not at the beginning, but somewhere in there, might be this kind of second season, I started setting my phone timer for 15 minutes, just like a yoga practice. I had I had been a yoga practitioner for years and years, 90-minute yoga practice, headstand, shoulder stand, sun salutations, that kind of thing. And I was like, there's no way, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not feeling it. But I'd set a timer for 15 minutes and I just go, well, whatever you got for me, grief. I don't know what it's like to be a student of grief, but I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to be devoted to this process. And I remember I would just let myself move. Sometimes I'd cry, I'd wail, I'd roll around on the floor. I'd listen to my dad's favorite music. I'd light a candle. It ended up becoming this ritual that I made up. Oh, I light the candle. I grab this walking stick. I go in a circle. And then I had a playlist and I put the playlist on. Then so it turned into a dance actually that I offered up. And then all this creativity came out of that, just emptiness of permission to do whatever. But I'm bringing that up because I remember this moment where I started letting myself move, and I this day I was like dancing, and I remember there was this song on and I was like this, and I paused because it felt so good. And I felt like so alive and pleasurable and happy. And I was like, wait, this is my grief practice. Like, shouldn't I be crying? And I was like, oh, well, maybe this is what grief is teaching me. Keep going.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm still distilling the wisdom that I got from that year. But that was a piece of wisdom that I got, was like, oh, grief is big enough to hold everything, including pleasure.
I love that. And I love how you phrase that, right? That grief is big enough to hold all of it, right? It can hold the sadness and the despair simultaneously at the same time, right? And it can hold the joy and the contentment and the happiness and the laughter and the, all of those kind of all at the same time. And that it's, when you're talking about how, right, there's some traditions that have us put on black and we have to have the face on and, and it just reminds me of when there was it used to have, everyone had the mourning period, right? And the closer the relation or the closer the relationship, the longer your mourning period, the longer you had to wear black, and all of those kinds of things. And it was just a widespread practice, kind of across religions and whatnot. And so, but to then be in that space to recognize that actually I'm honoring both my loved one and myself when I allow all of the emotions to come in and flow through, right? When I allow myself the memories that make me laugh and bring me joy and the body movement that makes me feel so good, I'm really honoring the person who's no longer physically here next to me, Yeah, that's really.
Because you are alive and you're letting that life force, keep moving through.
Totally. Yeah. So that sort of relates to that next question that I had of, is it possible to grieve better, right? Like, are there ways to go through this that sort of allow you to have that experience and to have that direction, like that purposeful direction, versus feeling like you're being tossed around all the time, and sort of, give us kind of just a brief inkling of what that looks like?
So what's coming to me right now around grieving better, I think number one is getting support. Yeah. So that you're not, that sort of feeling of of isolation is an extra cutting yourself off from life force, right? And yes, we need to be alone sometimes. What I will say is if you can be alone in nature, that ends up being a healing experience. And if you're alone in your house, not necessarily. Maybe like sometimes we just need to nap every day, for a huge chunk of time. We just need to be in bed, and that's give yourself permission to be in bed, be on the couch, go, sometimes we just need to watch a whole something of Netflix for 50,000 episodes or whatever, it's okay, right? Give yourself permission. It's like it's how we are with ourselves. So grieving better would be being gentle with us. And I know you work in that realm, right? With being kind to ourselves. Like it's how do we treat ourselves? So we have those internalized voices that might've come from, authority figures when we were a kid, or school, or some religious doctrine or something that kind of points the finger, like you shouldn't be in bed, or you shouldn't grieve like this, or so it's like softening that, like, how can we soften that? And how can we serve ourselves with gentleness? And go, when we hear that, like, why are you doing this? Or why, just like softening that and going, no, I'm just going to be gentle with me. This is what I need right now. I need this time. I need this space alone. Yes, take that time and space alone, but then make sure that you say yes to all the supports that are around you. And I have a whole teaching around this, that you can get support in ways that you don't even imagine. There's support from friends, relatives, right? Can I bring you a pot of soup at 4:00? Yes, please. Right? Can I get you some groceries? Instead of, I think our automatic reaction, at least this is how I was raised, was like, no, I'm fine. No need. So this, when we're going through a grieving process, yes, please. Just kindly say thank you. Mm-hmm. Yes, I love that support. Yes, I love that food. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you. So accepting support when it comes to you. Mm-hmm. Right? And there may be some times that you say no, do you want to have company? No, I don't feel like it. Like, of course, like listen to yourself. And if it's a no, it's a no. Right. But say yes to the support that's coming to you from other humans, and then go get support. Be gentle with yourself, get that self-support of gentleness, and then go, connect with your four-legged fuzzy friends, your pets, go outside, connect with, the sun, the rain, a stream, a river, a lake, go be out in nature. That is so healing. And those three things will really help us grieve better. And the last, I guess the fourth one would be a community of support. So support, in all the threads, how it comes to you. Right. And then really actively saying, yes, okay, I am going to consciously grieve. I'm going to go on a grieving journey, and I need a community to do that. And whatever community works for you. So I have a Grief and Grace Facebook community. I offer things. I have a year-long program for people, and that is the amazing choice for many. And other people, there's hospice support, there's bereavement groups, I was part of a local library bereavement group here. So whatever community of support works for you, I would say those are the four ways that you can really grieve better.
I love that. And that's so clear. And it's so, is it easy? Sometimes no, but it's simple, right? There's nothing kind of complicated about it. And it really speaks again, like, anyone in my world who's been around me at all knows that I talk a lot about intentional living and being intentional with yourself. And I think, you can translate what you were just saying into that, where you're really talking about being intentional about your grief process, being intentional about journeying through it and with it, right? And when you're talking about, sometimes you do need the walls around you, but do it intentionally, because that's what your body needs in that moment in time, not because it's hard to actually go out and get out the door. Like that's different, right? When your body really needs that alone time and it needs the walls, be intentional, use the walls, use your bed, use the Netflix reruns, and then get yourself out and have the moment in nature, the solo time in nature that actually has that healing property that you were talking about. I mean, really, really beautiful to kind of break out those four pieces of, saying yes, please. I love that. Right. So simple. Just say yes, please. And thank you, and allowing these things to kind of come in. So I know that speaking of support for this process, you have a really amazing event that's coming up at the end of this month. And it's a 3-day virtual retreat, virtual event that's called How to Feel Joy Again After Loss. And can you tell us a little bit about that event and what that experience is going to be like for those attending?
Yeah. I do these a couple times a year, this like longer 3-day virtual events. And it's an opportunity for me to share a little more of, some tools in how you can get support and some new perspectives in how you can see your grief differently as a healing journey, right? And not as something to get over. So I'll be teaching a little bit. It's also an opportunity to meet other people who have gone through, some kind of loss that might be similar to you. At the end, I always open up some space for folks to share, totally optional to stay on or not, but people love that, to be able to stay on and, share a little bit about, why they're there and what's on their heart. And then we can like hear from other people like, oh gosh, that's similar to me. I'm actually not alone in this. So, there's a community aspect in that 3-day event as well. And we share photos of what we're honoring, and, we share stories, and it's a really healing experience. So whether, you've been sort of doing some healing work around whatever loss in your life, or maybe you haven't, and you're recognizing, I have people now that are like, oh my gosh, my mom died 6 years ago and I've just been working like mad since, and I've never actually grieved. And now I'm just slowing down and realizing like, oh crap. So I just want to say to you, if that's you and you're realizing, oh, wow, I've had these losses and I never took the time to really be with those. I will say that if you do like what you're saying is like, go on the journey intentionally, this 3-day event can be the beginning of that. Okay. And I will say it's never too late. So if it has been 6 years, I've talked to women that's like, it's been 18 years since my son died, or, it's never too late to show up and say, okay, now I'm going to begin and I'm going to go on this intentional journey. And then we can get all of these gifts of wisdom and healing and creativity and next steps for purpose in your life. That's the gift of doing this work.
And that's really so important for us all to hear, that it's never too late. Right. And so if you're having that recognition that, oh yeah, I've been kind of putting the blinders on and just going, and I haven't been paying attention, and, maybe my body isn't functioning as well as it did before this loss happened, right? This is a really beautiful opportunity, like Jenn said, to start yourself on this really intentional journey of a grief process so that you can heal the things that are going on with you. And, having that community aspect is so powerful. I mean, we all know when we get to share story and when we get to hear story, magic just happens, at a different level than is possible when you're doing it on your own. So it's different than if you have friends who are supporting you, like that's really fabulous. But when you're actually in a community of others who are also purposefully going through a grief journey, like the layers of healing that can take place in that opportunity are just so profound. So it's one of the things I love about Jenn's work is that she does bring it together in community, because she knows just how powerful that community piece really is. And specifically that community that's really, you're all there together. You're all there for the same purpose. And I think that's really awesome. One of the things that I know I've heard you say before is that sometimes our heart and soul just need a little TLC, right? And this just sounds like the perfect opportunity for anyone out there who's working through grief, who knows there's some lingering grief somewhere, right? To gift yourself the opportunity for a little heart and soul TLC by showing up to this event. So I have the link. I am going to post it here in the comments, and you guys can go and check out some of some more information about this event. So it happens at the end of March. I believe it's the 28th through the 30th.
It's actually I was saying that myself, but it's actually the 29th, 30th, and 31st.
There you go. 29. I know it's the last 3 days of March.
In my 31 head. Days, not 30. I kept saying that too. And my assistant, she was like, it's not the 28th. I thought you were, I'm like, oh, maybe I was saying it. Yeah. It's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the last 3 days of the month, the 29th, 30th. But if you show up a day early, that's okay, I guess. You have to do something on the 28th too, like an intro or something. So, because I keep saying that.
That's so funny. Yeah. No, I had it in my head. I'm like, it's the last 3 days of March, but in my head, I don't know why March was only 30 days, but it's not. It's 31. So 29th, 30th, 31st of March. It's not an all day event. It's just a chunk of the day. So check out the information. You can get more details at the link that we just posted. And I hope you go and you get yourself a little heart and soul TLC from Jenn for those 3 days. I mean, it'll be such a great opportunity. You're just going to thank yourself for being able to experience this and being able to feel the power of intentional grieving and that purposeful grieving and really showing up for yourself in that way. So before we wrap up, Jenn, do you have any last words of wisdom or pieces that you would like to kind of touch on?
Yeah, the last thing that's coming to me is the title. I've been doing these for some years now, these longer 3 or 5 day, longer events. And this one, the title is How to Feel Joy Again After Loss, because I think sometimes we think, a grief workshop or a grief thing, like, I don't want to really feel more, or I don't want to go to this dark place again. And really the work is about coming back alive again. It's about connecting back with our life force. It's about, and when we do that, our true nature is joy. So it's about coming back to life and back into joy. So I think that feels really hopeful for people. And they go, oh, this is about me feeling joy. So, so the imagery I'm using is a picture of me with a huge smile, and it's how to feel joy again after loss. So I hope that that will inspire some folks. And I know some people that are in that very first moment, it's like, oh my God, I can't even imagine that. That just feels so far away. But for those of us that are, kind of out of that super foggy, dark place, we're like, no, I just need more joy. I'm just feeling like I'm living kind of in this like muddy ho-hum place.
Gray area, right? I'm in the grayness a lot. Totally. And, to what you were speaking to before, just because you come back into the colors, into the vibrancy of life and into the joy, doesn't mean that you are leaving the grief behind, right?
It's all there.
It's all there, right? Like, just like Jenn was saying, grief is big enough to hold it all, right? It's like, it's big enough to hold it all. And we are allowed to feel all the feels, to feel the grief and to feel the joy and the contentment and the beauty of life all at the same time. And so I feel like what I'm hearing from you is this 3 days really is the opportunity to allow your grief to expand to the point where it is holding space for all of that and not just the gray, the dark, and the heavy, but that it's really opening up the grief to be able to encompass all of the other beautiful parts as well.
Yes.
So awesome. Well, I hope all of you are checking out that link. You can drop questions for Jenn in the comments, right? She will be able to come back to these videos and check them out, answer any questions. I can answer some questions perhaps too, but go ahead and drop any questions that you have right here into the comments. And we will be monitoring that, but you can click on the link, go and check it out, and let us know that you are going to be there. It's going to be a really beautiful event at the end of the month. So Jenn, thank you so much for being here. So much. I mean, I just know that these words were so necessary for so many people. And I just really appreciate you coming into our community here and sharing your wisdom.
It's been such a pleasure, Kia. Thank you so much. I look forward to meeting many of you at the end of the month. So
awesome. All right. We will see all of you later. Mwah. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day wherever you are, and we'll talk soon.